Each badger marks the track with its own scent.
His black legs are short but very powerful for digging. The name badger probably comes from the French word bêcher, meaning digger.
And I said, Lucas, that I was going to let you present this, and I will do in a second. But I want to jump in and say I've worked quite hard on those new graphics at the start of the podcast, and I like them. All the little fellas bowling and batting.
Yeah, I was going to say that's something new. I quite enjoyed that as well. Well, yeah, that was very nicely done.
Yeah, the idea is to have the slide of what the podcast is going to be, and there's a general slide now for kind of general discussions like today. And then if we get guests on and stuff, we'll do a special slide for them. And then that little intro into the podcast, and away we go. So there we are. Anyway, I will hand across to you now, because we are going to be initially on this podcast talking about the state of English cricket, Lucas.
Yeah, and obviously some news that franchise cricket is now in ownership. They want to put money into the counties. And I know you've got opinions on this. What when you heard this news, what was your initial reaction to this?
I mean, anybody that's followed the podcast knows my opinion on the 100. And this is basically where I saw it going. It was always heading in this direction. It was a moneymaker. And it was a way of getting money into the game. And obviously money's good. The game needs money. You need to pay the bills. You need to develop grassroots cricket. You need to make the game strong financially. That there's no issue with that whatsoever. But I think what I'm picking up really is from some quarters anyway, a kind of like, yay, look at all this money coming in. And yeah, to an extent, yay, there is money coming into the game. But it's kind of the future of the game. This is where my opinion on the 100 was always founded. It was I like not like you. I like white ball cricket. I like watching a white ball game. There's far too many franchise tournaments at the moment, and some of them might just pass me by. I don't even notice they're being played. But generally speaking, if they're in England and English players are playing, I like watching them. I like watching the IPL. But we've got to be. I think the game has got to be really careful with the way it uses this money that it's bringing in, because it's got this. We need to make the game sustainable. Now we've seen London Spirit valued at 260 million or whatever it was. But big fee. And obviously the consortiums, the bidders are looking to buy 49% of the franchise. It's going to give them a big say, obviously, in the way those, in London Spirit's case, the Lords, the MCC, that ground's run. In other cases, Manchester, that's been sold. Old Trafford, and how that's going to work with those new owners and kind of the dovetail. You'd like to think that the new owners will get on with the existing owners. There won't be any controversy, but we all know that's not how human beings, especially when there's big money involved, that's not how human beings always work. So there are a load of unknowns in that. In terms of the way it dribbles down, the money that comes into the game, it's suggested that somewhere around about £15 million will be going to each of the counties. And obviously the test counties that own the grounds will be getting more than that, because they're going to get a share of the full pot that's been invested in their team. So it is creating, definitely, we've always had in county cricket smaller counties and bigger counties, test playing counties and smaller counties. That divide is going to grow as on the back of this money coming into the game. There's no doubt about that. Whether you're a 100 fan or you're not, you can't dispute that. That's going to, an us and them kind of situation will become more obvious as we go forward. And I think, £15 million to a county is a lot of money. But £15 million in sport sounds a lot. And if I was to lay it out on my bed, I'd be very happy. But it's not that much. If you see Manchester United, Old Trafford, they're talking about rebuilding their stadium, and they're talking about building a £1 billion new Old Trafford. Cricket and football, it's ridiculous to compare the two, because the money differential is huge. But it just gives you an idea that if you want to build something that's modern, state of the art, and new, it costs a lot of money. And just to stand at a cricket ground will cost you a lot of money. Putting in new floodlights costs a lot of money. We've seen test match grounds being encouraged to be category A, spending a fortune on upgrading the facilities. Upgrading facilities is a great thing, but these counties are going to have to be very careful about how they operate. And you'd hope that £15 million going into a smaller county will be enough to be invested in something which has got a long-term benefit for that county. So, I mean, if it was me at, for sake of argument, Derbyshire, and I was getting suddenly a £15 million windfall, rather than just spaff it up the wall on something which is shiny and golden but doesn't give you a long-term return, you'd like to think it would be maybe a new stand that's going to have ticket benefits, or something which is basically a venue, hotel or a venue or something which is going to bring you in an income long term, rather than something which is here now, gone tomorrow. So county's going to have to be very careful. I had Ashley Giles on the podcast recently talking about new roads in Worcestershire, and obviously has been underwater again recently, as it is underwater seemingly every couple of months. And the ground staff there do an incredible job, and there's obviously chats around the county game, and obviously mostly at Worcester, about whether they can afford to stay there, or whether they need to look at finding new facilities and new grounds and moving away, which would be tragic for county cricket, because New Road is one of the most picturesque, quintessential English kind of venues that you're going to get. It's a real gem, but you can't afford to stay under something which is under 4 foot of water half the year. So if they suddenly get £15 million, you'd like to think they'll be able to invest that, maybe get some match funding in with the council or whatever, and maybe fund the move. But once they've funded that move, that £50 million is gone, isn't it? And therefore, if you are, by virtue of the fact all this money's coming in, cricket has to prioritise the 100. It has to, because that's where all the money's come to. That's what the investors are going to be expecting. They're going to be expecting their money to get a return. And by prioritising the 100, we've already seen that happen. We're giving it August. It's probably going to get longer. Hopefully, we'll get Virat Kohli playing in it. But with Indian owners, that might make Indian players come to it, which would be good for the tournament. But it's probably going to end up being 6 weeks, 7 weeks, or something like that, right across the middle of the English summer, where the weather's probably best. I know people argue with that, when's the best month, but generally speaking, you can, if you're going to book a holiday, August is probably the most likely in England to get good weather. So there's all of these things about how it's going to work and how things are going to move forward. And this money will be spent, and this money will go. And then what's left after that? Are we just going to basically be celebrating having franchise cricket in England and the county championship and everything else further marginalised, further kind of devalued, and less people watching it? It's too late to have the chat, but we had the chat at the time about if they invested just a little bit of this money, the money that the ECB have spent on the 100, just invested a little bit of that in the T20 Blast and the Championship, in terms of marketing, in terms of polishing it up, in terms of fireworks to make it exciting, then you could argue that they could have done this by doing the investing in the county game. That argument's dead. That argument's gone, because it's happened. So we've got to kind of deal with the current landscape. But when you see England's men being beaten very comfortably by India in the recent T20 series, you see the England women going, and there's been a lot of investment and a lot of profile given to women's cricket in England by virtue of the 100. I've always said the one good thing about the 100 has been the platform it's given the women in England. But then you see them going to Australia, and it's been amateur hour. It's been, with all due respect, it has been amateur hour. Watching England playing in Australia. And we've got a massive year ahead for English cricket. You've got the Champions Trophy coming up, maybe not a massive tournament, but it's the first kind of litmus test of the McCullum era of the white ball game in England. It's a tough group that England have got. They're in the group with South Africa and Australia, isn't it? Yes. That's going to be, in Afghanistan. So that's going to be a tough group to get into the top two of. And I don't rate England's chances very highly. So if they go out the Champions Trophy, then you get into the English summer, and you've got Zimbabwe test, but then you've got India for 5 tests. India are a very good side. England could beat them. England could lose, but that's always a tough series against India. And then obviously down to your mob and England teams, rightly or wrongly, aren't judged by how they batter Zimbabwe or how they cope against a Pakistan attack or something. They are always judged by how they do against Australia, and Australia is no different, I would imagine. But the kind of cycle of Test cricket goes around 4 years, from probably one Ashes tour to the next Ashes tour to the next Ashes tour, and you are judged. All of that work in between is then brought to a kind of a climax with the Ashes. And if England get battered by Australia, which it's happened before, then all of a sudden you scroll on 12 months and you've sold off the family silver domestically, and the English team isn't really going very far. And all of the Bazball, yay, it's exciting. Ultimately it's a results game. And if England don't do very well over the next 12 months, then there'll be inquests. And we've seen that before. After going to Australia, all of a sudden, we need an inquest. We need a thorough review of the domestic setup. Why are we failing to go to Australia? Why are we failing to go to India? And kind of maybe the proof is that the 100 is scuppering our chances internationally. They may win all of those series. It may be marvellous. But yeah, it's a massive year. It's a massive, massive year for English cricket, this. All of this money coming into the game, how's it going to affect the game? How's it going to be spent? How's the England national team going to get on? In 12 months' time, we're either going to be looking back and thinking, yeah, this is all right, or we're going to be looking back and thinking, Jesus, what have we done?
Yeah. I like some of your points. You mentioned the ground you mentioned, maybe we should have a hotel. Adelaide Oval really benefited from that when they did the redevelopment and they put a hotel there. Really nice. I don't know if you've been in there, but it's a really nice hotel.
Do you know what? I've never been to Australia, Lucas, and I would like to.
Well, you can start in Adelaide. And you can start with that beautiful hotel on the stadium. I also agree with your points about the England's women. I want to talk about that a little bit later. But just on this takeover, are you like, we've seen nations like West Indies, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, completely rely on franchise cricket. Not so much Australia. They have their big bash, but Test ratings say that Test cricket still is the number 1 format by a mile. Are you a little bit worried that these takeovers could hurt county cricket?
Absolutely. I mean, the 100 already has hurt county cricket. There's no. Whether you're a 100 fan or not, the 100 has hurt county cricket. It's pushed it even further into the margins of an English summer. You talk about some countries. Australia's got better weather than England. India, wall to wall high temperatures. There'll be rainy seasons and stuff in some parts of the world, but generally speaking, you get to Barbados and it's probably about 28 degrees all year round. England didn't like that, as anybody English watching this will know. You've got a short window of an English summer, which increasingly starts in kind of March, April time with pre-season matches, and then goes through to sort of September, early October. And it's not guaranteed to be sunny all the way through that either, but that's the English summer. We can't play in England outside of that period. So you are very much boxed into those months. And you have to fit all of these things into that summer. And what we've seen more and more is that because the 100 has come into August, and it's basically just taken over August, there is the Royal London One Day Cup played behind it, but very much behind it. And county matches, we've played half the county season by the time we get to the end of May. And that's, the worst of the summer. You get into June, July, August, that's probably the 3 months where the sun's more likely to shine. So that's when I would like to see county championship matches played, but that's when less and less are played. So that we've already seen that marginalisation of the county game. What remains to be seen, though, is when Mr. Investor comes into Lords, when Mr. Investor comes into Headingley, Old Trafford, wherever, how much of a say are they going to have on the rest of the setup? Because they're going to be looking for a return on their investment. They're going to be looking for their brand which is the 100 side, to be given top billing. They are going to, you're not going to spend, tens, hundreds of millions of pounds to be second best inside a county ground. You are going to be spending that kind of money to be given prominence. So if a decision is going to be made, I mean, I don't know how the setup's going to be inside a club. Clubs have boards and directors and what have you. You would imagine that somebody from that investment group will come onto the board to have the say on various things. And if there's generally speaking, you would imagine if there is a decision going to be made on investment or on priority between a championship game and a 100 game, the 100 game is going to win. That can't be good for county cricket. As I say, there is more and more in county cricket, and us and them thing. The smaller counties that don't get test internationals, and the test match grounds, and the test match grounds are going to be laughing all the way to the bank because the counties, their own counties, are going to get their chunk of the cash, and they've obviously then got that investment inside their county ground. You'd imagine that an investor coming into a ground will be able to invest a little bit more, maybe in building up the infrastructure of the ground, and maybe if you suddenly need a new, I don't know, groundsman or whatever, and you need an extra X amount of thousands of pounds for that, we'll chip in for that. So they're going to be fine in terms of their longevity. It's the other grounds that I care and worry about, because I grew up watching county games at New Road, at Canterbury, at these smaller grounds. There's a special thing about smaller counties. They're not robust, but they win tournament. They win. If you look at the T20 Blast, smaller counties has won just as many as the big test counties. The counties pick up silverware. They're run well. They need the support, they need marketing, and they need to be loved. And they need, I always think, Lucas, with marketing and advertising, it's very easy to market and sell something you genuinely care about. Because if you genuinely care about what you've got in your hand and you're showing somebody, it comes across. The enthusiasm, the love comes across. At the moment, the ECB are supposed to be looking after the global game. They don't look like they love county cricket. They look like county cricket. They're suffering county cricket. They're pushing it to the edges to give everything to the thing they do love, which is the 100. And that comes across. If you're holding something in your hand and trying to sell it to somebody, and you look like you hate you not hate is too strong, but you don't like what's in your hand, that person's not going to buy it off you. So anybody looking to buy tickets ain't going to be seduced by what's happening at the moment. Not for the county clubs anyway. You have just one final point. You have got die-hard county fans who will be more than aware of everything I've just said, and they will support their counties. But it's becoming more, it feels like it's becoming more like a cult thing. Like that film that comes out that everybody talks about, and a few people dress up once a year and go off to a party to celebrate it. But nobody else really knows what's going on. If county cricket feels like it's becoming that cult rather than the 100, which is becoming the kind of the Hollywood thing, and it just doesn't sit right. We've got a question actually from Amit has come in. He says McCullum has grabbed the ECB and Rob Key by their balls, and they seem to be loving it. I mean, Amit, I don't know what you're suggesting there, but I mean, they do seem to have put. I mean, in the same way that ECB has put all its eggs into the 100 basket. They have put all of their coaching eggs into the McCullum basket at the moment, because obviously with Matthew Mott going from the white ball setup, had a poor 2 years after winning the T20 World Cup at the very end of the Owen Morgan kind of, Josh Buttler just taken over, hadn't they? Matthew Mott came in, and they kind of, the momentum from that previous regime seemed to take England to that T20 World Cup, but then that soon has dissipated, and England have gone down the rankings in both the T20 and in the ODI setup. So, and McCullum's now been given the task of doing that. I mean, I think they've been quite clever in that he's not going to be at every ground for every match. He's going to get some time off. You need to get time off. Otherwise, they're going to burn him out, and he's going to get fed up with it. But yeah, as I say, Amit, I think the next 12 months will be. Yeah, McCullum's passed some exams so far. He's failed some exams so far. Bazball's been dead exciting, but Bazball's also been massively frustrating. England are basically have to some degree reverted back to what they always were. Team that wins at home and struggles away. You know, that's what England's always been. If you look back at results prior to COVID, that's what they were then. That's what they are now. There's been some incredible days under Bazball.
Yeah.
You know, that probably the most notable one was it Lahore, but it's away at Pakistan in the first tour there where they smashed some ridiculous amount of runs in a day to turn an inevitable draw. In any other era, it would have been a draw.
Royal Pindi, I think.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and they turned it into a winning situation. Yeah, days like that has happened because of Bazball, and and Bazball on that basis is exciting. But then there are days where you kind of sit there watching it thinking, what on earth are you doing? Why are you playing those shots? And, and I guess if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. That'll be what they say. And they've shown a lot of trust with players, possibly in some instances longer than they should have done. But whether you rate McCullum or whether you don't rate McCullum or whether you sit somewhere in the middle, he will be judged by the next 12 months.
I'll say this and I'll let you take over. We've seen in Australia the last couple of years that India, when they've gone to and beat Australia twice, and then in Australia they've changed their structure. They've changed the way their shield is. Yes, there is a break between December and February, which I don't like, because the time the second season of the Sheffield Shield starts in February, there's no Test matches for Australia. But there has been some reaction to those losses. Would it take an Ashes belting for them to wake up and say, you know what, maybe this isn't the way?
Well, it frustrates me at times that we always talk about the Ashes far too much, because I enjoy a series against West Indies and a series against India and a series against Pakistan just as much. The Test matches, and they all matter, and that a Test run's a Test run regardless of who you score it against. But obviously, the history of the Ashes, it dates back longer than anything else. And that's where Test cricket started. So you can understand why it's special, and it is special. But I think we talk about it too much, and we talk about it as after we start talking about the next Ashes series as soon as the one's finished. How are they going to build to the next one? How are they going to build on that win, or how are they going to recover after that defeat? And we've seen it with England. Every time a new fast bowler's picked, it's because they are preparing for the Ashes down under. Win the Test match you're playing now. Ashes down under. That fast bowler will probably be injured by the time you get to Australia. But you've got to kind of have that balance a little bit, haven't you? And I think, the Ashes is brilliant. Don't get me wrong, I'll be absolutely engrossed in it when it comes around. But let's talk about it kind of 2 or 3 months in advance of it, rather than 18 months in advance of it, and make that the be all and end all, because there are a lot of other really good Test matches to play before we get to that stage. But it does tend to be it's Judgment Day. That first ball of the Ashes, the kind of those 5 Test matches, the feeling that you get after you've won it or you've lost from it. If you've been battered 4-0, 5-0 down under, that is what tends to lead to that suddenly what's wrong with English cricket, and how are we going to mend this? And we have an inquest. Sometimes there's a full-blown review, and sometimes the domestic situation changes as a result of that. But I do think we lurch a little bit too. I was talking to somebody the other day, Lucas, going off on a tangent a little bit, but I think British sport, is really poor at grabbing opportunities. I can remember talking years ago to somebody who was a hockey person, and Team GB had won the gold medal. It was late 80s, maybe Sean Curley time. But apparently a lot of people suddenly turned up at the local hockey clubs. A lot of kids have been really turned on by. It might not have been that period. It might have been the more recent one when the ladies won it. But they suddenly, a load of kids turned up at the weekend at the hockey club to say, "Can we play?" And that is brilliant, isn't it, for a sport? You suddenly get all this new influx of kids. but they didn't have enough hockey sticks. They didn't have enough coaches there to look after them. And they said, come back in a couple of weeks' time, kind of thing, when we'll get some in. Of course, the kids go away. The kids don't come back, do they? And so hockey didn't grasp the nettle there and take it forward. I think rugby, when England won the Rugby World Cup with Johnny Wilkinson's drop kick, rugby didn't grasp the nettle then. And English cricket certainly doesn't. After the 2005 Ashes, biggest series that I'd ever experienced. There were people talking to me about cricket during that 2005 summer that had never even watched a game before. There was suddenly the whole nation was captivated by Michael Vaughan's team, and every match was an event, and every match was close. England put cricket behind a paywall on Sky. So rather than say, "Yay, look at cricket! This is where we are. Come and watch us. This is the game that has just excited you." Well, hide it behind Sky, and unless you've got some money or you really want to subscribe to the sports channel, you ain't going to see it. And when England won the 2019 Cricket World Cup, it felt to me like that was English cricket ticking a box and saying, "Right, that's job done." Pictures of Owen Morgan with the trophy will be enough to do the job. That's all we need. That is when the work starts. If you're actually really bothered about, really getting the game going and exciting kids and getting the next generation, blah 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 blah. That moment where Owen Morgan lifts the trophy at Lords is when you start to do the hard yards, and you go around and you say, "Have you seen this? Let's get you playing. And I think English administrators just sat back and thought about, let's introduce 100. And that to me, England have never been very good at actually capitalising on great moments. I think it's few and far between sometimes with England. And you got to sing and dance and do the hard yards after you've won things. And England haven't always done that.
Oh, we did. We've seen recently in the India Australian series, a wonderful series. Would have been very interesting if Bumrah was able to 100% bowl. That would have been very, very interesting. But look at the end result of that series. A TV rights was the first time since 1997 that an away series was on free-to-air TV based off one series because of viewership. I think that's absolutely fantastic, and I think that's a step in the right direction when it comes to not just Cricket Australia but cricket in general for many nations.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the trouble is with English cricket that we've been that long now. 2005 is a long time ago. We're 20 years away from that. It's kind of scary, that, isn't it? 20 years since 2005. Anyway, but by putting cricket on Sky, and don't get me wrong, I'm not criticising Sky. I think Sky have done a really good job with cricket. Their coverage of cricket is really good. But it is only seen by people that have got Sky or are in the pub. It's not on free-to-air television. You're not going to get a kid like me back in the day who was sitting on the sofa one summer's day kind of going through the channels thinking, what am I going to watch now? Shall I watch the Banana Splits? Shall I watch the Flintstones? Oh, what's this? Who are these white guys walking around with whites on? And then suddenly kind of started to think, oh, this is interesting, and I'll watch a bit more of this. You don't get that now. You don't get people that just kind of accidentally fall on cricket. You've got to buy it first.
So it's not. So not even home series is on free to air in England.
No.
Wow.
Everything is on. Well, everything's on Sky in an English summer, and more. It's now on another provider, TNT or something. They seem to be getting the away series, taking the host feed with Alistair Cook and Stephen Finn in the studio back home for the intervals. But yes, since 2005, they sold off the rights to Sky off the back of the Ashes success, and you need to be a subscriber to Sky. Over and above, I mean, the way it works in England, Lucas, you need to pay for a TV license to basically watch television, full stop. That goes to the government and to the BBC. Sorry, that goes to the BBC to fund the BBC. And you then, if you want to watch Sky, you then have to pay quite a lot of money. I mean, I pay it, and I pay it largely because it's part of my job to kind of watch sport and to keep up to date with stuff. But I won't tell you how much my Sky bill is per month, but it's in three figures. I mean, I like watching movies as well, so I do tend to get the whole lot. But but yeah, so if you're going to get Sky, but that's for an English summer, and less now. I don't think Sky are going to have the rights for the Ashes. It sounds like TNT are going to get that as well. So you're asking Fred Smith to pay his TV license like the rest of the country does, but then if he wants to watch cricket in the English summer, he needs to subscribe to Sky and get his either his box or his satellite dish or whatever to get that. And then if he gets excited by that, he then needs to fork out another subscription in the winter to watch the England team going abroad. Yeah, you're asking people to jump through a hell of a lot of hoops financially and logistically to follow the England team right now. And the trouble is as well, in the same way as the 100, the horse has bolted on coverage of cricket in England, because the BBC, where it was always based, and then it went to Channel 4 for the two, Channel 4 did a good job for a few years, but it was the BBC, then Channel 4, who are one of the real free-to-air channels. People now have kind of satellite boxes where you can get other channels on top of that, but then I think they're free. But the schedules are such now that BBC, Channel 4 and stuff have got used to not having it. They fill their schedules with other stuff. So even if Test cricket takes up the entire day, doesn't it? So
it does, yeah.
You've got to send all the cameras to the ground. You've got to send all the people to the ground. It's a big operation to cover a test. You've got to have the commentators in the box. You need to get everything right. All the production staff, the trucks outside to beam it off to people, and then you've got to devote your entire schedule for that day pretty much during the day to cricket. And people, I don't think the terrestrial broadcasters want to fork out the money for it, and B would want to give up their prime time viewing, well, their daytime viewing for just that, because they've got other things in those slots now. So it seems that Sky or another broadcaster like TNT, a subscription model, is going to have Test cricket or an international cricket for the long haul.
Well, we saw that with Fox Cricket. We think Fox Cricket, that's mighty. They want cricket. They didn't want a bar of the Sri Lankan Australian series. Didn't want an absolute bar of it. They made no bids whatsoever. And for a while there was it was at one stage alarming that we might not have that series on free-to-air TV. Oh, sorry, not in TV in general. That series not in general. You have to pay a sports betting company such and such just to watch it, or it might be on YouTube on premium. That's how bad it got at one point. Then the local free-to-air network, Channel 7, which does all the Australian games anyway, regardless of who they play at home, stepped up and said, we'll take it. And I think as you mentioned, it's now off Sky Sports, gone to another network. The World Test Championship, that's in the dark as well. Can you believe this? That's in the dark as well. Fox Cricket hasn't picked up the rights for that. We're in that final. They haven't picked up rights. Well, so
there's been a few English tours recently where coverage has only been agreed at the last minute. I can remember Channel 4 got one of the series where it was literally 2 days before the first match was played. The Channel 4 suddenly stepped in with a bid and said, yeah, we'll take it back onto our channel. And they they brushed off Mambo number 5 by Lou Bega and basically kind of rolled back the years for Simon Hughes in his bedroom kind of thing. But cricket is sold. Tickets seem to be just a peripheral kind of consideration these days. You look at some grounds around the world and there's nobody there. It is TV rights that fund the game, isn't it? And it does make me kind of cringe a little bit that if TV gets bored of cricket, and obviously TV will carry on showing cricket as long as people are watching it. It's all about numbers, isn't it? For TV, you see when anything on television, you get a good drama series. As soon as it starts dipping in the ratings, then they'll bin it. And it's be the same with cricket. If cricket starts dipping in the ratings, they will bin it. And they're relying very much on Indian eyes, I think. And hopefully, Indians will stay captivated by the game forever. So hopefully this is never an issue. But it's very much the TV money that kind of runs the game. And yeah, for some series not to have actually got cameras pointing at them until the 11th hour, and like you said, the World Test Championship is supposed to be the pinnacle of the cycle, and for that not to be at the moment kind of broadcast to people in Australia, you'd imagine by the time it comes around, somebody will have put the hand up. But
at this point, at this point in time, Amazon Prime has it. So if you don't have Amazon, this is where it's ridiculous. If you don't have Amazon, you need to buy a subscription. But then you got to buy a plus sports package. So you're paying more. You're paying an extra money to watch one series, to watch one Test match. Yeah, it's a World Cup. Really, it's the World Cup of Tests, if you want to put it that way. So it's just absolutely ludicrous that an Australian broadcaster has yet to pick that up. And right now, as it stands, you have to watch it on Amazon and pay 2 subscriptions, which is absolutely ridiculous.
I'll tell you what I subscribe to. I obviously pay my TV license, which is about £30-something a quarter. I pay
James, I can't believe that.
I pay my Sky subscription, which is a lot more than that per month.
I know what you mean,
I've got Amazon Prime. I like Amazon. I get I do a lot of my shopping on Amazon. So the Amazon Prime thing I probably have anyway, and the kind of the TV part of it is a bonus really, because you can get next day delivery, blah blah blah. There's a free advert for Amazon, but Amazon's on my list. I subscribe to TNT as well because it gives me cricket and football, because a lot of the football's now on. I mean, with the Premier League football, it's on, some matches are on Sky, some matches are on Amazon, some matches are on TNT. I think it's just the 3 of them. But that's increasingly the case that one sport, for one, if you are wanting to watch every single kick or every single delivery of sports, you probably need to have 3 or 4 subscriptions to actually cover the entire year. And you know, it's like you kind of get them, and I always, when I took TNT out, I thought once this series is finished, I'll cancel that and then kind of reignite it when the next one comes on. You forget to cancel it, and you look at your bank statement, and the direct debits really come out, and then you realise there's football on, so you end up watching that. So, it is expensive. It is, we talk about ticket prices. It's expensive to sit on your sofa and watch sport these days.
Well, and that's the point, James. It's not just one subscription service. It's 3, 4, 5. It's a bit like here in Australia with soccer. We've got so many leagues, La Liga, Serie A, French League, Premier League. They're all on all different subscriptions. So you're paying probably $100, $150 alone on subscriptions to watch a certain something and to watch another certain something. So it just gets absolutely ridiculous.
I think with Sky in England, I don't know this. It's just me kind of adding 2 and 2 together and making possibly 5, but I think for Sky, cricket's not their priority. Sky Sports, cricket's not their priority. It's football. In England, football, Premier League football is where it's at, and lower leagues as well. They've broadcast those. If you're a football fan, Sky Sports is a must basically. If you want to watch the football, but obviously the English football season starts in August, goes around and comes and finishes in May. So once the football's finished, there are programs about the transfer windows and various other things and what's happening with various players and stuff like that. But for me, I seem to think that cricket for Sky is important between sort of like June and July, basically, because they're the 2 months when they haven't got live football, and that's where cricket comes to the fore. So it almost feels like they pay to broadcast the game purely to get those 2 months, and then obviously the hundreds come into the equation in August now, just to fill their schedules up. If football went all year round, you wonder if Sky would actually want cricket.
I know I said this before. I'll give you this one last question, and then you can take over. But what do they do for Wimbledon? Because again, that's a very prestigious tournament on the tennis calendar. What's the rights for that?
Well, the way it works in the UK is they have, I can't remember what they call it now, but there's like gold label events, and so they have things like the Olympics, things like Wimbledon, things like the FA Cup final, England's international, major tournaments in English football, stuff like that are kind of almost like ring fence. They have to be on the BBC or ITV, which are the two major terrestrial free to air stations. Anything else can be on those stations, obviously, but then BBC and ITV would have to bid for them to broadcast them, and they don't. Yeah, when I was a kid, I used to turn on the television at the weekend, and BBC would have everything. But in those days, it was only initially 3 channels, then it turned into 4. It was a major event when Channel 4 came when I was a teenager, and now there's I don't know how many hundreds of television channels, but so basically, it was all when I was a kid. It was all on terrestrial. You paid your TV license, and you got everything. And BBC had a hell of a lot of sport, and gradually, the number of sports, or certainly the amount of sport that the BBC has on it, has dwindled incredibly. A lot of that's gone to Sky. A lot of that's gone to other satellite providers, and then you have to pay your extra bucks to do that. But those kind of top end sports, and I think they're actually like earmarked by Parliament as being the kind of gold label sports. Royal Ascot's probably one as well, and stuff like that, where you they have to be on terrestrial. Cricket isn't. Cricket's not. And there have been debates about should one like the Lord's Test or something like that be on free to air. And I can remember, I think Colin Graves in a select committee defended the ECB not kind of moving that forward by saying it would cost them a fortune to get one test match on free to air. And there's probably an argument for that. And I wonder what good one test match would do, because you get a kid sits there and suddenly thinks, "What's this?" Watches it, likes it, and then realizes he can't watch he or she can't watch any more for another 52 weeks. So you wonder what good one test would do. It'd be great for existing cricket fans that can't afford Sky, but that's probably the only audience that would actually really benefit. So yeah, I mean, what I would like to see more, just as a final point. We've gone on to TV coverage, and that wasn't anything that we were supposed to be talking about. But it's quite an interesting chat, isn't it? What
I would happens when you put me the host, James. It could go anywhere, absolutely anywhere.
I think it's good. I think it's worth doing because it all fits into the 100 and what have you. But I would like to see Sky maybe being a little bit more philanthropic. We've seen it before when England got to the final of the 2019 World Cup. Sky made that free to air, and just because it's on a satellite subscription model doesn't mean they can't give things away for free.
Yeah.
And what I think would be some kind of like happy medium, or probably not even getting to the medium, but at least a little bit of a concession, would be to allow maybe 1 test or 2 tests a summer, or something at least, to be on free to air, even if it's one competition. The Royal London One Day Cup gets no, put that on free to air, or Sky can broadcast it. To me as well, that has a benefit for Sky. It has a benefit for people to be able to watch that event for free, but it also has a benefit of Sky being able to show those people what they can do and how good their coverage is, because their coverage is great. NASA and Athers and blah blah blah. If you put 1 test on there and Sky show it really well in their customary style, you would imagine that they're going to get a few more people saying, "Actually, I'm going to subscribe to that next month because that was really good fun." So, for me, that's a little bit of a win-win, and nobody ever really talks about that. People just assume because something is on the satellite subscription model that it's got to be paid for. But there have been plenty of instances where it's been given away for free, and and kind of at the other extreme, there's plenty of kind of pay-per-view. You're already paying for the subscription, but you've got to pay more to watch the heavyweight boxing fight or something like that. But I mean, I think Sky giving away, I mean, a lot of talk about the 100 that it was going to get onto free to air. BBC have broadcast some of the 100 games and some of the women's games. And some of those have been on free to air, which is good for the game. But what's to stop Sky, who are broadcasting the whole summer, sticking a few things on free to air just so that people can see it? I don't think there's any drawbacks to that. Because as a subscriber myself, if they were to put one test on free to air, I wouldn't stop subscribing because they were giving one away. I wouldn't be banging on the door saying, I'm paying for this month and you're giving a week of this month away for nothing. Why I want a refund? I would see it as being a good thing. I don't see why they don't do that. Anyway, thank you for that chat. That was good. We'll come on to a few more things. We're going to get on to Australia a little bit, and for the remainder of the pod, we've got about 15 minutes left, Lucas. We're going to have to shoehorn all of that in. But first of all, thank you very much to manscaped.com for their continued support of the Cricket Badger podcast. If you go on to manscaped.com and you put in Badger, you can get yourself 20% off and you can get yourself free shipping.
If men were squares, shaving would be easy, because a flat surface is perfect for a traditional razor. But we're not squares.
What?
Presenting Manscaped's new Dome Shaver Pro. Because we're not flat, we have curves, we have balls, we have round. Where most blades are created for flat surfaces, the Dome Shaver Pro is designed specifically for your big round head. With 5 double-track skin-safe blade heads and Manscaped's Flex Adjust technology, you'll be able to shave your head faster and more efficiently than ever before without the fear of nicks or cuts. And yes, of course it's waterproof. This is Manscaped. So go ahead and enjoy that big, bold beauty. Embrace the spherical essence of your existence. Grab life by the bald. Shop now at manscaped.com.
I like playing that advert because it shows it's not all about, because I think there's a thing with Manscaped that people think it's just about shaving your nether regions and that's it. But yeah, they do the entire thing. And those for those follically challenged people, if you want to shave your head and not have to go to the barbers, that looks like a really good piece of kit. So quote Badger on manscaped.com. And they'll sort the rest out for you. It's very good stuff. We are on the Cricket Badger podcast. Thank you very much indeed for watching. You can tune in later as well on the audio podcast. And it's also been beamed to the Garav Iron YouTube channel as well. So hello, Garav, and if you're watching as well. You wanted to get a few things off your chest in terms of Australia as well. We did have a question there before you start from Amit, who says, who's replacing Cummins and Hazelwood in the Champions Trophy, Lucas?
Boland and I think Morris will be on standby. If they're going to pick Boland's, well, I think it just shows you how much they care about that tournament. With all due respect to Scott Boland, he's only played I don't even think he's played one international. He doesn't play many white ball domestic cricket either. He plays the odd big bash game, but not much. So if they replace Boland with Cummins, I think it just goes to tell you where their priorities really set. Because
it is 50 over though, so it's kind of his bowling might be quite good in a 50 over.
Yeah, well, I don't know his specific stats because he hasn't played that many games in the Marsh Cup, which is the white ball domestic tournament. So he mainly just plays Shield, and if he doesn't play Shield, he's playing for Australia. So I can't really tell you his stats, unfortunately. But I think my point is there are other bowlers that have played a lot of big bash. I've played a lot of white ball cricket. Joel Parrish for one. Fergus O'Neill just, he just came off we mentioned him in other podcasts. He plays a lot of white ball cricket for Victoria as well. Plays a lot of big bash, as we saw. He's one of the leading wicket takers. So I think if they're picking Boland over those bowlers, that probably tells you where their priorities are. To be honest.
I've just put on the screen there Lucas banging on about Australia. But your boys have been in action in Sri Lanka and won the first test quite convincingly. Is one test still to go? It's just 2 test series, isn't it? Yeah. They've sent Sam Constas home, and looking at the reaction yesterday, it looks like it's just generally he's not going to play. Let's get him back to Australia. Let's get him back in the Shield.
Yeah, so they were a little bit quiet on that, why they sent him home. Then they said he's got a Shield match, which they do. He does play against against Queensland at the Gabba. in a week's time because the Sheffield Shield is back now that the Big Bash is finished, the second half of it. And they said they want him to play matches at the Gabba rather than in Sri Lanka, so because the first test will be at the Gabba, the Ashes series.
That makes sense. That's actually a cricket board thinking properly, isn't it?
Well, it probably also goes to tell you that he's probably going to be opening in that series. He's definitely going to be opening in the Test World Championship. Travis said will go down, and he'll probably open in West Indies. I don't see Travis Head opening in the West Indies. They're spinning friendly, but it's not that compared to Asian countries. I don't mind Constance going home. My question was, why is he there in the first place? Where you could have taken another batsman. But at the same time, you've now dropped 2 players in the space of 3 tests, 2 young players, and I wasn't a fan of Travis Head opening. I think the 100 he made in India, the 90 he made in India, I think that was a smoke and mirrors pitch. That was the world's flattest pitch. If Australia won that test, they would have won the series and retained the trophy. They made the world's flattest pitch. Kohli made 100 on that pitch. Cameron Green made 100 on that pitch. There was talks of Kohli retiring in that series. He made 100 on it. So I think that pitch was just smoke and mirrors. Yes, technically it's worked. He's made that 50, smashing the opening Sri Lankan bowlers. But I just don't like now you've got 2 young players in the space of 3 tests. It just didn't really sit well for me. But it paid off. Khawaja, I know I've banged on Khawaja a little bit. I want to be clarified here. I wasn't upset with Head opening. I was upset that a 38-year-old Khawaja was taking over Constance's place. But that's what I was a little bit.
He's still better than Constance, isn't he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, he made an argument himself. He just got boomered by the best fast bowler in the world, which is probably no absolute disgrace there. And he makes 200. He makes me look stupid. Well, really, the Sri Lankan fielding made me look absolutely stupid. I've never seen anything like that. If they didn't drop Khawaja once, they dropped him 100 bloody times. Missed a review for crying out loud, where he smashed the ball and they didn't bother appealing for it. I think in the end he's going to play. The one I'm really concerned about is Marnus Labuschagne. He hasn't made a run in 12 months. Has not made a run. And he looked in that Sri Lankan innings, which was a little bit of a road in the first 2 innings. It was good. It was a good toss to win. Let's be honest. It was one of win the toss, win the match. Yeah. He looked all at sea. He didn't know what shot to play with. He didn't know how to use his feet. He didn't know how to sweep. There was one time where he reverse sweeped, and he almost bowled himself doing that. There's a lot of questions with Marnus, and personally, when Sri Lankan series is over, he needs to A, go back to the Shield or B, find a county team and get in form, because there's an important, the World Cup for me, the Test World Championship. Yeah, we can debate the format of it, how it's executed, but for me, I take that very seriously. The best of the best are playing in that, and I want to win that series or that match, that World Cup final. And I don't think Marnus. Yeah.
So it's funny with Marnus, isn't it? Because he burst onto the scene. His record in Australia was what kind of made his name initially, wasn't it? He was averaging a ridiculous amount in Australia. Has always struggled really abroad. He scored runs for Glamorgan when he's come across in the county championship, but he didn't quite do it last time he came over. And he does seem to have just lost a little bit of the. He's not scoring the runs he used to, is he?
His technique has fallen off, to be honest, with you. Now, he works as I know he's got a. You don't want to be sitting next to him on an airplane, James. As you've told me, he'd be one of the worst persons to sit next to an airplane, especially on a long flight.
I'd imagine Marnus Labuschagne, because I've seen him interviewed a few times. He looks like a nice lad. I imagine in small doses, he would be really good company. I think if I was with him for a full long-haul flight, I'd probably jump out the window, because he never shuts up, does he?
I think that's a perception of. I think most of his teammates would say who's the most annoying on a flight. I think Marnus would be the first on top, but no, his technique has fallen away. He does work a lot in the nets, probably even more than Steve Smith, which is saying something. But for some reason, his technique has fallen completely.
Do you know what? I was talking. I do another golf podcast, and we were talking about golfers tinkering with their swing.
Yeah.
And ultimately, sport, bat ball sport is quite simple. See ball, hit ball. It's pretty simple. But there are quite a lot of moving parts, and people start to analyze their technique. And of course, you can make your technique better. But I think that some people, and Marnus, he's a little bit on the spectrum, isn't he? I mean properly, he's a little bit autistic. Is that right?
Yeah, a little
He's
bit,
got ADHD or something. He's certainly
Yes,
he's
yeah.
got and to get where he's got with that but that's what makes him a bit of a dynamo and a bit of a chatterbox. But I also think that possibly makes him a little bit of a tinkerer. You talk about him being in the nets, and I've seen a lot of players at close quarters who are scoring runs and they're looking for more, and that's not a bad thing. The hunger for more, but the ones that really start to tinker and try and get more. I've just got 150, but I could have got more in that innings if I'd only been able to do this. So they play that and tinker and tinker and tinker, and then for many of them the wheels come off. And they think they tinker too much, and then they spend the rest of their career trying to get back to where they were at the start.
And it's not just batting; it's bowling as well. They tinker things in their bowling, and oh well, I had a good day, but I could have been better. Maybe I'll try this instead of that, and it sometimes doesn't work. But I think what Marnus, I wouldn't have played him in the second test. I would have sent him home for the Shield, which would have been against Sam Constas at the Gabba. But there's another criticism that I didn't like.
Maybe Sam Constas says I'm only going to go home if Marnus doesn't come with me.
He might have. He possibly could have. Where the perception is that Constas has that Warner type mentality. As we saw against India, took them on, and but the criticism of Nathan Lyon in that Indian series really disappointed me. Saying that he might be past it. He didn't take any wickets. He's bowling on a green top. Look what happens when he goes to Sri Lanka. He takes 7 wickets in a match. So I thought that was completely unfair. Nathan Lyon had a brilliant test match. You can't do much on green tops. One, because you're not bowling. I think in the second test match in Adelaide, he only bowled 2 overs for the entire match. So I think that was completely unfair on Nathan. He's made it clear he wants to come back for the England Ashes in 2027, and I heavily believe that. When he got injured and he was out for the series, he literally said from ball one, I want to come back, and he's backed that up numerous times.
He's fit enough, I think, and unless he gets another injury, I don't see any reason why he shouldn't be able to do that. As my Sky coming on, we talked about Sky earlier. There you go. Turn off. His voice, that TV's voice activated, and sometimes if I say the wrong word, it'll suddenly spring on in the podcast. I was thinking as while you're saying that I think a lot of people, cricket's not like a hardcore tennis, or the pitch and the circumstances play such a big part in what actually is possible for the batters and bowlers out there. And I was thinking that when the 5th T20 International England in India, where Abhishek Sharma went berserk and India got a huge score, and England were bowled out for 97, I think. And you see that happening quite a lot. I mean, we were going through when Abhishek Sharma was batting. I was doing doing some commentary, and we were going through the highest scores kind of thing, and the highest the fastest 50s and what have you, and he was certainly rivaling all of those stats at one stage. But excuse me, he's that scoreboard pressure that you get from a team getting 247 when you're batting second in a T20, unless everything goes right for you, the wheels come off and you fall. So I actually said on the commentary that you don't judge England on this one game. You judge England across the series, and 4-1 defeat, obviously, in that series was poor overall, I think. But equally, the conditions on the ground, the way that pitch plays, makes such a difference. Nathan Lyon can turn up at one ground and take hatfuls of wickets because it's spinning sideways. On another, he's going to be nullified to some extent. And I think some people, I've spoken to some quite intelligent cricket people sometimes who just don't seem to get that. Why is he able to score 100 there and he's not able to score 100 there? Well, because it's tougher. The conditions don't suit him there. Can we finish off, Lucas, with just a quick word? We're just going to go over the hour here, but it's fine. what do Australians think of England's women? Because from a distance, obviously the other side of the world, I never thought England were going to win that series, but I was hopeful they would push Australia, and I was hopeful they'd take quite a few points. I really like I like the setup of a women's Ashes in terms of the one day matches, getting points and building up to the test. I'd love to see more women's tests played, but what do did Australia feel shortchanged a little bit that England turned up and were so poor?
I did, because of the first test. There was a wash down a couple of sessions. I actually did manage to watch. Can you believe it or not? I actually watched the women's test match. I thought England were. I don't want to come along as sexist. I don't want to come along as, oh well, he's just being, misogynic and whatnot. But I thought they were poor. I thought they're.
Well, that's not sexist. What I said, Lucas, when at the start of that series was, if you want, I love watching England women, and I've loved to see the upward curve of women's sport generally, but cricket is obviously a big part of that, and I enjoy watching the women's sport. But if you are going to get a lot of noises about equal pay in the 100, if you are going to get that, you what comes with that is the responsibility to perform, and you will get criticism off the back of that. Same way that England's men. We're not averse to criticising our male sportsmen, and we shouldn't be averse to criticising our women's sportsmen. That is equality. What Alex Hartley did, and her comments about the fitness and what have you, and the way England's women responded to that, I thought was quite. I just thought it smacked of a little bit childish. It seemed a bit pathetic.
I thought the whole high performance coaches of England's women's, it does not matter what format, what level, you always got a plan, whether it's under 14s. When I coached under 14s, I had some plans for my fast bowlers, or women's cricket. You need plans to get out batsmen. And all I saw was from the spinner that took 5 wickets, Eggleston.
Sophie Eccleston,
and Gay. All I saw from them was bowling to Beth Mooney and Sutherland off the hip, and they were picking them off singles galore. If that was the plan, well, geez, they did that to a T. You got to set some kind of plans to any kind of batsman, whether what age. And I just felt there was nothing. I just felt they were in their motion. They were doing what they please. What shocked me was, going into this series, I thought England might win a couple. They're ranked number 2 in the world, James, I believe. It's not like they're ranked 8. It's not like they're ranked 9th. This should not happen. Yeah,
they're ranked 2 in the world in both T20 and ODI. Yeah,
this really should not happen. These are the 2 best teams, and it felt like it was the Australian women's team facing an under 13 girls team. That should not happen when one team is ranked number 1 and one team is ranked number 2.
I did think, though, I tweeted that I thought it was poor, and it was. I don't think anybody defending the performances over there wasn't. You're wrong, because they were poor performances. I feel that there's kind of 3 or 4 genuinely world-class players in that England setup, and the rest are kind of blagging it a little bit. They're kind of riding the wave because England's women's cricket is going in the right direction, so they're riding the wave. When you become professional as a sport, you need to be professionals. And at the moment, I just wonder if that's lacking a bit, and I think that's where Alex Hartley was coming from. But I do feel when I tweeted the picture of Sophie Eccleston in front of the honours board at the MCG, where she was rightly on the honours board, and apparently since about 1930 they've been putting the women on the honours board as well as the men, and I think that's great. They are cricketers, they are playing tests at the MCG, they are getting themselves on that honours board. That's fine with me. But I got a lot of people saying some quite derogatory remarks about Sophie Eccleston, and saying that should only just be for the best in the world. She is currently ranked number 1 in the world. So she is the best in the world. So stick that in your pipe. But I think criticism's fine. as long as it's not personal. And I think it's got a little bit personal with some of the women.
I'm a little bit divided with her name on the board. Not because she was a woman. She took 5 test wickets at MCG. Her name should be on a board. But when you look above and you see Brommer 6 for 20 and 6 for 20, or Annabelle Sutherland was on the board as well. She made 100 at the MCG. Her name's there. When you see Steve Smith above her, you think, are they better than Steve Smith? Probably not. But at the same time,
who's saying they're better? I
think they should have their own board, in my opinion.
For me,
yeah,
I don't think it's even up for debate. I don't see why it's even up for debate. They're playing Test cricket at the MCG.
Yeah.
Stick them on the Test cricket honours board. Full stop.
I completely agree with that. But I took a look at the board, and the next best. So Sophie Eccleston took 5 for 150. So I looked through the records. The next best was Richard Hadley. He took 6 for 100. But the rest were 7 for 20, 6 for 20. Ambrose, destroyed.
I think Anil Kumble was on there with 5 for 100 and something. There was. You don't always get your fifers at
absolutely
at 8 per wicket, do you? Not everybody does stop bowling.
Yeah, well, especially on green top pitches. Well, it seems like England were playing on green top pitches all series long with the England women, the way they were batting. Look, they should be on the board. I completely agree with that. But they do play a different game to the men's. It's shorter boundaries. The ball they use is smaller. They use a 142 two-piece ball compared to a 156 gram 4-piece ball.
It's the same game. It's just played with slightly different.
I get that. I completely get that. That's fine. There's been a lot of debate in Australia with Alana King, the leggy.
She's great.
And yeah.
What a bowler she is. God.
Yeah. There's been debate whether a women's player could stand up to a men's player, as far as like speed and that. Now I made a point saying, I got criticised for it. I said, look, they bowl different speeds as well. Now I saw who's the England quick Bell. I think her name's Bell. She was bowling 120 k's, and they said that's probably the fastest a woman's going to get. Now some conditions she might get tonked, and I hate saying that because that happened to me. I got the same criticism. I hated it. I still do. Still hold a small grudge. Yeah, go. Yeah.
Can I just say I just don't. I understand the. It's the same as comparing eras. I just don't understand why we get fixated with wondering whether a woman could play in a men's team.
Yeah,
it's just It's pointless. The women are the best women at what they do in their countries. That's the end of the thing. Whether they would cope with facing Mark Wood bowling off his long run. They probably wouldn't, but they don't need to, do they? Because they're not playing against Mark Wood. They play.
Well, I think,
me and you are tennis fans.
Yeah.
I prefer watching women playing tennis than men.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
Women in tennis, they don't serve as fast. They don't hit the ball as fast. They don't. They're not as strong as as the men in tennis. They're not as tall as the men in tennis. But I think as a result of that, you actually get better rallies because the men, Nick Kyrgios or whoever comes on and just blasts 4 aces and goes and sits down after winning a game. You don't get that as much in women's matches. You get far more guile and far more skill sometimes on show because they have to work out their opponent and play a slightly different way. You're not going to get the Billie Jean King moment that happened years ago. You're not going to get Iga Swiatek taking on Yannick Sinner because they don't need to. They're playing their own tours, they're playing their own events, they're playing the same sport, but they're playing in their respective sexes. And it's exactly the same with cricket. Why is there the fixation to work out whether a female batter could withstand a male quick? They don't have to. So what's the point in talking about it?
And there are some boring men's tennis players out there. John Isner, Milos Raonic, who just serve ace after ace, and they can make it look very boring. but moving. I want to move away just for that briefly. Alex Hartley made a good point. She mentioned about women's cricket in general, and I actually like this. She said the English women girls, they come to Australia to play grade cricket, which they do. I even though I'm not Div 1 anymore, I still play for the same club. And there are women that go to my club and play grade cricket. But she made a good point that there's no Australian players that do the same in England because there's not enough England's women cricket. So, and she said that's where sometimes the game can elude. There needs to be more matches, a structural format in the women's game. And I thought that was a really good comment from Alex Harley. I really agree with that. If you don't have structure, no matter what competition it is, no matter if it's men's, women's, whatever, if you don't have a good domestic structure, what chance have you got? You've got no chance of improving. You've got IPL, you've got Big Bash, but they won't improve. You know that. Look at the Test matches. Like I said, 1 versus 2. That didn't feel like a 1 versus 2. And with the Australian, the press and that, they felt it was just a complete hammering. It was just not competitive, and that shouldn't happen when a team's ranked number 1 versus a number 2. That doesn't happen in tennis. That doesn't happen in any other sport. Why should it happen in cricket?
Right. I mean, it happens as a one-off, doesn't it? You might get a 1 versus 2 in a very one-sided match, but over a course of a series where there's so many matches being played, and England never really got going at all, did they? I agree with what you say. I think there are moves. I have to admit, I'm not as across the women's domestic game as I am across the men's, but there are moves to make different teams and to kind of get that structure going. I think in England, Australia woke up to women's cricket earlier than England. Yeah, I think that's the bottom line, and Australia has therefore stayed ahead. But I think there are, and as I said, the 100. The one thing the 100 has actually excited me about is the fact that it's given the platform to women in England to get a little bit more cash, get a bit more reward, and to get that experience. The worry would be that it's the 100 and they're playing that format and they're not playing maybe some of the other formats quite as much as they should be, as seriously as they should be, and that's maybe where they need to get to.
In Australia, there's women cricketers, women playing cricket everywhere, club level. They're not just playing white ball games; they're playing red ball as well. There's a Sheffield women's team, women's competition that play 3-4 day domestic games, and I don't see that in England. So I think that's one.
I think it's coming. But I think England are behind where they should be in that. And I think to be honest, I think the ECB know that, and I think there are teams being built right now. I think in the women's game. So I think in 10 years' time, we'd probably be having a very different discussion on the structure of women's cricket. And there are women's teams, and there are county teams. Yorkshire have got a county team. I think Lancashire have got a county team. I think they've all got some kind of women's presence there. It's just maybe not quite as embedded and as good as the Australian model just yet.
I want to say this one thing before, when you wrap up the show, and I say, I've got one more thing. I'll say this now. Get out of the way. I'll move off this topic. Yes, a warning to the Australian men's team for the second test. A warning: do not even think about losing that test match. You haven't won. I know this is this people might think I'm actually joking here. You haven't won a series in Sri Lanka since 2011. I don't care how you do it. I don't care if you bat for damn 5 days, make it 1,000. They almost made that in the first test. I don't care how you do it. Draw the damn series, win the series. I do not want to see 1-1. There's five series that have been 2 test series, and 3 of those have been draws. I don't want this to be the 4th draw from 6 matches in a 2 test series. Again, a conversation for a different day. But damn it, don't you even think about even losing this game. I mean it, Jay. I don't want to come on here next week, James, and look pissed or angry. I don't want to see that. You might want to see that. The viewers might want to see that. I do not. Don't even think. A warning. I'm finger pointing at the Australian cricket team. Don't even think about losing that second test.
My only response to that is, come on, Sri Lanka. Good luck to all Sri Lankans out there. Hopefully you have a very good week against Australia, and wipe that smile off Lucas's face. Lucas, as always, thank you very much indeed for joining me. It's been lovely
Thank
to
you,
catch
James.
up with you. And we will be back, as Lucas said. We'll come back on a regular basis over the next few weeks, and plenty of cricket to talk about. Plenty of probably some more developments in the old 100 stuff and selling off the frame. We'll probably do a review of that at some stage when they're all sold off and the landscape's a little bit more known. But thank you out there, everybody, for watching. Thank you for sending in your message at cricket_badger on the old Twitter feed and on the socials. And we will see you again next time, everybody. I am trying to find, you're saying goodbye there. I can see you saying goodbye. I'm trying to find the end screen. Here we go. It says, thank you for watching. That's exactly what I say.
James.
Yeah. No, you've come across me. But I was finishing off there and then you spoke. I've got it wrapped up there. Honestly. Goodbye, everybody.